The word for you today, it's December the 2nd, Saturday. Hope you're having a good weekend. Our lesson today is heed your own advice. Our scripture passage is Proverbs chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen well to my words of insight." This is Solomon, and he's encouraging his sons to listen to him, that he has wisdom. The Bible says that Solomon is the wisest man who's ever lived. Well, okay, where does it say that? Well, 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 11 and 12. What's happening here is God comes to Solomon and he says, ask anything. Ask me for anything you want, and it's yours. Here we are, 1 Kings 3, 11 and 12. So God said to him, to Solomon, "Since you have asked for this," and Solomon asked for wisdom. He didn't ask for anything, he asked for wisdom. "Since you have asked for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you ask. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never, ever have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be." Isn't that incredible? It tells us right here, Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived, and there will never be another one as wise as him. So Solomon gives a lot of wise counsel. If you read Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, you see a lot of that. However, Solomon didn't follow his own advice. For instance, you find a lot of times in Proverbs where he warned about seeking after other women. Yet he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. As if that wasn't enough, they led him away from God. He worshiped their gods. He also taught people to, in his wisdom, trust God in all things. Yet he made alliances with other nations for protection. He also warned about amassing great wealth and what that can do to you, yet there was no one who had more wealth than Solomon. So he had a lot of wisdom, but he didn't follow what he said. Why do you think that is? Why do we give advice or wisdom sometimes and we don't follow it? Well, sometimes it's easier to see another person's situation than our own. Sometimes we look at our situation and we're a little too close and we don't apply wisdom to our situation. Also, emotions. Emotions come into play. Sometimes emotions cloud our thinking. And sometimes we second guess ourselves. Well, it really couldn't be that. And then we don't take our own advice. You stop and think about it. Why would you advise somebody to do something in a situation that you wouldn't do in the very same situation? It doesn't make sense, does it? And Solomon didn't make sense. So heed your own advice. What you would tell someone else to do, be sure that you would do that. In Ecclesiastes 12:13, Solomon gives us another piece of wisdom. He says, "Now all has been heard." Solomon tried everything he could to find meaning in life, to find happiness. He says, "Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." Solomon said, I've tried everything to find peace. I've tried everything to find meaning in life. And it all boils down to seek God, because God's where wisdom comes from. Kind of like a man, his little daughter were at a concert, and he told her, now listen for the flutes in this song. And she said to him, what does a flute sound like? Well, in order to hear the flute, she had to know what she was listening to. How are we going to have wisdom? Wisdom starts with hearing from God. And how are we going to know when we hear from God if we don't spend time with God? So, in order to gain wisdom, first of all, spend time with God. Then ask Him to give you that wisdom. And when you listen for God's voice. And the more time you spend with Him, the easier it will be to hear Him. Then when you hear His voice, do what He says. Heed the own advice that you would give to somebody else that you've heard from God. And you know what? God will bless you. He'll bless you in ways like He did Solomon. And you'll hear those flutes. Why? Because you're listening for them and you've heard them. Have a good day.